Hello there and welcome to episode 1 and only of the Taurox campaign in Mortal Empires. It's called 1 and only because there's only going to be one episode of this playthrough because nobody watches Let's Plays, but it's also going to double up as a bit of a guide for those who are new to Total War or who struggle with campaigns. So if you want to get a good start in this campaign, you can try and copy what I do here. I've run through the start of the campaign a few times to try and find the best way to go to set you up for a good start in this campaign. I am more of a traditional Total War player though, so you won't find any cheese or doom stacks here. So, let us begin. So, the Taurox campaign in Mortal Empires. What do we got? The Beastmen rework brought the new Herdstone and Bloodgrounds mechanics. We've got the Dread currency to use as well. And for Taurox's unique mechanics, he's got Rampage, which basically means he just wants to keep fighting as much as possible. He also gives some buffs to Minotaurs. Starts off with a Gorgon, some Harpies, and some Minotaurs. So a nice bunch of starting units to go with. We're going to do this on very hard, which is my preferred difficulty. So anything lower than this, all this should work for. So, Taurox Mortal Empire starts up in Nagarond, the Slaughterhorn tribe. So his Rampage ability, basically the more you fight and the more you win battles and things like that, you'll fill up the Rampage bar, which once you hit a certain threshold will give you some kind of buff that you can choose. As you can see here, this is the bar. You're going to be trying to fill this up with pure aggression and hatred. And then once you do, you can choose one of these little buffs, and then you'll move on to the next set of the Rampage buffs. Again, you'll need to fill up the next part of the bar, and so on. So yeah, it's all about keeping momentum going and keeping the battles coming and winning. If you start losing battles or you sit idle for too long, you are going to lose that momentum and lose some of that bar. And Beastmen factions are still hordes. I'm sure we know how those work. Then we have the new Bloodgrounds mechanic with Herdstones. We'll go through this in a second and I'll show you it as we go. That'll probably be easier to understand. Dread is a currency that will accumulate. You can do various things with, upgrading your troops, your army, your unit caps, etc. And we also have the underway beast paths to use as well. So that is the Taurox Beastmen campaign with the rework. I imagine a lot of people have seen how this works, so I imagine a good few of you have an idea already. So first things first, get our caster in our army. We're going to need him as we have no magic otherwise. We've got a nice Gorgon, the Minotaurs, we've got plenty of powerful stuff, and we're just going to go after this first settlement right next to us and get this party, or rampage, started. Now we have the new auto-resolve outcome, so we can see that we're going to get a decisive victory, so I'm just going to auto-resolve this one. I could fight it for a slightly better result, but this is fine. We can still keep on rolling with this. Now we can loot and raise, but what we want to do is raise a Herdstone. This is going to be a hub and a ritual site that we're going to gather power for and then eventually perform a ritual with. So going to get one of those down nice and early and we can start to build that up. So you can see the number 6 on it there, that little number 6 right there. That's currently telling me that if I perform a ritual, which I can't yet because I have to raise somewhere else first, then it'll give me 6 marks of ruination, which we'll look at more in a second. But if we click on the settlement, we can see all the surrounding settlements that'll give us points adding to our marks of ruination. 6 here, 6 here, 6 here, 6 over to the right here, 4 down below, another 6. So there's plenty of points around us that we could gather to add on to our ritual. So let's say I came over and raised the red desert here, wipe it off the map, and then that 6 that it says above the red desert will be added back here as Storag Core, which will give us 12 there. And if we raise this one, add another 6, that's 18. Raise this one, that's 24. So we can really bump up this number at the ritual site at the Herdstone by destroying all the surrounding settlements and then doing the ritual. You can do it straight away after one settlement, but it would be a waste of potential of the surrounding settlements. So good to try and get them all, or at least most of them. But now that we've taken our first settlement, we want to recruit a few units. And if you don't know, Beastmen units now do not have upkeep or recruitment cost. But you do have unit caps, so you can only get so many of them. You can see here, 0 of 2. I could get 2 of these Ungor Herd. And then I'm out of space, can't get any more until I upgrade the cap, which is one thing that we use our Dread for. So good thing to try and recruit these units nice and early. Get yourself a big army as quickly as possible so you can just keep rolling on your rampage. Otherwise you're going to get a bit too slowed down. Got some skill points to use. Root Marcher. Get the spells going for our caster. And start the research with the only choice we have. And that is most of the stuff to do here. We can upgrade our little settlement that we have. As we go, we will be able to upgrade the Herdstone and get better units from it, a bigger garrison. So it's a little bit easier to protect as time goes on once you've spent a bit of dread to upgrade the Herdstones. We can put some additional buildings here too. I usually like the one that gives replenishment. That's always pretty handy, but there's a lot of useful stuff. This one gives you line of sight on all the regions in the province. This one will reduce damage output of towers and things if you're looking to take a tough castle. This one messes with movement range, so there's all sorts of stuff that you can buff up. Like I say, I prefer the replenishment, help my army stay strong and to keep rolling. In diplomacy, not really a lot to do here, don't really have any friends. Can get a non-aggression with some other beastmen, why not? Good to make friends with other goats. We can upgrade our horde as well, but I think we're going to leave that for now. We're going to wait till we get level 2 horde before we upgrade any buildings. Okay, on to the following turn. We're going to start to move towards the next settlement to keep our rampage rolling. And we want to make sure we've got at least 10% of our movement range left here so that we can go into our encamp stance and recruit a few more units. Going to move into the enemy region just so we're sure that we're close enough to attack the next settlement on the next turn. We don't want to take too long. Encamp, recruit a few more things. Probably going to get some doggos, maybe a little more ranged as well. Just trying to make the army as large as possible. These units are all pretty crappy, so we need a lot of them to really be effective. We're not a small and powerful army. We need to bring lots of numbers and just overwhelm the enemy as much as we can. On to the next turn. We're going to attack the settlement in front of us. This should be a pretty easy take. This is going to be a close victory. There is a lot of orc boys who can be pretty hard hitting. So we're going to try and fight this one to make the best use of our boys, and so that we don't lose too many from the auto-resolve. We should be able to win this pretty cleanly, pretty quickly, without losing too much at all. So I'm going to show you how I do this and how I'm going to use the units. Again, just a little bit of a guide if you're not sure what to do. So fairly simple setup, just got all my infantry up the front, missiles behind, monsters there as well. We don't want the monsters too far back though, because ideally we want them to go in kind of a little bit ahead of our infantry to take some of the charges away from the orc boys. So I've got some of my crappy spearmen up front. These are just going to absorb charges if they need to, but ideally we don't want to let the orc boys charge us, because orc boys hit very goddamn hard for a cheap unit, and they will beat the crap out of most other cheap units like this. So we need to take their charges away by letting our large units go in first, or if really necessary we can use our cheap chappy stuff and try to let the better units get into those orc boys once they're already fighting. That's one of the mistakes people make fighting greenskins, is they try to beat them head on, but the greenskins are the best at fighting head on, so don't fight them head on quite so simply. Try to take away their charges. And the other big mistake people make fighting greenskins is they try to out damage them and beat them by killing them, which really isn't necessary. The greenskin leadership is pretty damn low, so if you want to beat greenskins, take away the leadership, then they'll run away. Don't need to actually kill every single orc on the battlefield, just scare them off. And that's what we're going to be looking to do here as well with our Gorgon, with our Minotaurs, anything with fear and terror, Taurox as well. We just try and scare these orc boys away rather than trying to kill every single orc, because they will win that fight if we try to out-kill them. You can't out-kill the greenskins, man. That's crazy talk. So you can see we've let the crappy spearmen absorb the charges. Now we can get our slightly better melee troops into the orc boys, now that they're not going to take all that damage from an orc boy charge. And you can see with the doggos and with the harpies, we just tried to get after the missiles to stop them from firing. The Gorgons go into town on their lord. Got rid of all the missiles. Now we need to use our fear and terror and break that leadership. Start hitting the units in the back. Anything will do. These harpies can do it. But naturally, the big boys are going to be the best for this, for breaking leadership. Those fear and terror causing units like the Minotaurs. Start to get them in the flank of the orc boys, and they will not last long. The Gorgon as well. Taurox has taken out the lord. No issues for him. He's run away. If you can kill the lord, even better as well. That'll break the greenskin leadership that little bit quicker. Now we're going to try and get a charge in with our Gorgon so we can use his terror to scare units away. You can see this side pretty much completely broken. Those little flanking charges took away the leadership of the greenskins, which is how we need to win. Gorgon coming in, going to terror out these instantly. Boof. And there goes the greenskins. So we get a nice decisive victory there. Certainly better than what the auto-resolve would probably have done. Now we can't raise a herdstone here because we don't have any. You only get a certain amount of them that you get more of as you go. So we can either raise and advance, which will give us a bit of replenishment and some movement range. So we can try to keep our rampage going if we need that extra movement range. Or we can loot and raise, which will give us some extra money and bestial rage. Still get a little bit of movement range from it as well, but not quite as much. So we're going to advance in this case. Not in desperate need of the money. So that's good. We've got our second settlement down, and you'll see we've now got an extra 6 added to our little ritual site here. It's 12, and we can perform the ritual now if we want to, as we've raised a settlement, but this would really be a waste of all the potential around us, so we're not going to do it yet, because you can't undo it or redo it once you've performed that ritual. But once we have done it, the marks will be added up here on this bar to the marks of ruination. This will further allow us to get more units and more armies. It eventually leads to the final battle. It is a requirement of the campaign to finish it, to fill up this bar entirely. So we got to do that. And if we look at the campaign objectives, actually just the short objectives, we got to get that 100 marks of ruination, win 100 battles. So got to do a lot of fighting. Got to take out these settlements, which are all pretty close, and just win that final battle. So not too hard of a campaign in the objectives. Just got to do a lot of smashing in the Nagarondish area. So we've raised our first settlement, added some marks of ruination to our ritual site. We need more though. We need to keep moving. So I'm going to go for this next settlement, the Red Desert. But again, we want to try and get the encampment start. So we need 10% movement range. You can see exactly what you're going to get in the bottom left. We're going to get our 10%, go into encamp and recruit a few more units. I want to keep making this army larger, even if it is only the crappy doggos. Maybe a few more spearmen. That should do it. I don't think there's anything else really that needs doing this turn. Got our settlement upgraded. We got some research. I'm going to take the one that increases speed for all of our units. Just make us that little bit faster at rolling up on the enemy. Going to take the basic traits for Taurox first. Get all of his skill lines going. Get some spells for our caster. Viletide is a good choice. I do like a good explosion spell. Very useful in the blobs that the AI often likes to do. And just to take a look at the Dread panel, this is where we can upgrade our unit caps so we can get more of certain units. So at the moment I can only recruit 2 of these Ungor herd each, but if I spend the money or the Dread, I'll be able to get more of them. But I'm not really too fussed about doing those because they're not a unit I'm going to use very soon once I get some better options. And we do need to move through that Marks of Ruination bar so that we can unlock some of the higher tier units and be able to upgrade them. We can also recruit the other legendary lords as well for the Beastmen if we can afford them, get some more heroes as well. Here's a few upgrades you can make to your horde in general, to the herdstones as well. Good to try and take this first herdstone one as early as possible, I found, because that does give you a much bigger garrison at your herdstones. You can also buy items to give to your characters. Some of these are really good as well. Extra campaign movement range. Drunken Bravado here gives perfect vigor and regeneration. Get that for every single lord and hero you have. It's pretty damn powerful if you use them in battle anyway. But on we roll to the next turn. And on to the next turn. Again, we're just going to roll straight onto the next settlement. Get attacking, keep that rampage going. This one is going to be a siege, so a little bit tougher. You could fight it to get a fairly decent result if you want to. I'm going to auto-resolve it in this case though. I'm not too worried if I lose too much, because the beauty of the system of not having to pay for upkeep and recruitment cost is if any of your units, your crappier units anyway, get beaten up and pretty much useless, if you have the time and a turn, you can just recruit them fresh again and disband the nearly dead ones, and it won't cost you anything. That's not ideal for better units though that you're going to want to hold on to, because of course you will lose your chevrons. For now though, we've got a bit of travel time ahead of us, so we can replenish. We don't need to get rid of any units. We've got to get across the map and try and get to our next fight as quickly as possible. We've got 18 Marks of Ruination ready to go, but we can get 6 more from this last greenskin settlement over here, so we're going to try and do that. And that should set us up with a good start in this campaign. We've taken out our starting enemy faction as well. We can then move on to some of these Dark Elf settlements, try to get all those. Doesn't matter if we don't get all these Marks of Ruinations around. We can still get them later from other herdstones that we can place. So it's not a loss if you don't take everything, but it is good to try and get as many as possible, as quickly as possible, because it just fills up that bar faster and will allow you to get to the end that little bit quicker. On to the next turn. We're looking to get moving. We don't want our rampage to slow down. We can either get a Gorball hero or a Brace Shaman hero here. We've got a choice. We're going to go for the Gorball, as we already have a caster and we only have 1 army. We can use this Gorball as a hero to scout ahead and see what we're running into, because that is one of the things you do have to be careful of as a horde, is if you run into a bad situation as a single horde and you get wiped out, it's game over if you don't have a second horde. So you do have to be a little bit careful, and scouting ahead with a hero is often a great way to do that. Now I've decided to use the beast paths here because our normal movement range didn't get us very far, and it probably would take 3 turns to get over there. It would mean we could do more replenishment of our health, but we might lose some rampage because we're not fighting for a few turns. So I've gone with the beast paths so I can hopefully on the next turn get straight to that next settlement and we can keep that rampage going. Even though our boys are fairly beaten up, we should still be able to take this last settlement. And also I know that in a few turns I'm going to get the full moon, which means I can get full army replenishment instantly. So we don't really need to worry too much. As long as we've got enough to win this next battle, we're going to get a fully replenished army in a few turns anyway. Now if we move on to the next settlement, we should have just about enough movement range. Please, 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 we do. So we can get all the way to the next settlement. They've got a bit of an army there. They are recruiting, so good to get on them now. Only has a 6 garrison. So this will be a Pyrrhic victory if we auto-resolve, and as you can see, we'll lose a lot of our units. They're only the crappier units that are easy enough to recruit again, but we'll fight this because it should be quite winnable. It's mostly gobbos. They're going to be very easy to scare off. So similar strategy as before. We've got some crappy units up front just to absorb charges, and then we're going to try and use our Fear and Terror, break the leadership of these greenskins nice and quick. There's only a few units of Orc Boys though, so not too much real damage threats on the field. Going to try and disrupt those missiles with the doggos and the harpies, although they only have 1 or 2 units I think, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. Just got to watch out for the Orc Boys. Just trying to protect our slightly better infantry from them, as they will do a lot of damage pretty quick. We can just let our crappy spears soak up the charges, and then our slightly better infantry can be much more effective. And this is just a good practice to get into when you get better units and you want to protect like Bestigor and Goreherd. This is a good practice, even if you're only protecting Ungorherd at this point. Still good to start doing. Going to bring in the Terracausen units now. Drop a little Vile Tide as well on a blob. A little blob of Orc Boys, try to take them out. Get the doggos in. Got 3 or 4 units of missiles, shouldn't be a problem. Should get some quick routage. Just start to charge everything in. It's mostly going to be about the big large units scaring everything off. Taurox, the Minotaurs, the Gorgon. Got our Brace Shaman as well. Not a lot for him to do. I think we pretty much got it done. That's it. This is pretty much GG at this point. There's nothing the AI can do. They got a lot of gobos still running around, but they won't last long as soon as the Gorgon gets a hold of them. And you can see most of this Greenskins army routing within 30 seconds. So nice and easy. Look to break that leadership of the Greenskins. That is mostly the key here. And if you can protect your important units, make sure the missiles don't fire as well. Good to try and always disrupt missiles. The AI is pretty much always on skirmish, so all you need to do is run near them with any kind of unit, and they will run backwards and stop firing. So make sure you don't let them fire. Try not to let your caster get killed by a gobbo as well. Harpies to the rescue. And that is going to be a GG for this Greenskin army, and that is going to give us another victory on the settlement. And as you can see by the health bars of my units, bar my crappy spearmen, this is much better than a Pyrrhic victory that the auto-resolve probably would have given us. So good to fight these battles if you really think you're going to lose too much. So that gives us a decisive victory and another settlement taken. And more points added to our Herdstone. We're going to loot and raise in this case, I think, just for that extra money. And as I say, the full moon's on the way. So we'll get that free replenishment in a second, which will help us keep rolling. But that, I think, is pretty much it for the good start. That's a good place to go. You've taken out that first faction that you're at war with. You now have choices. You could go after some of these Dark Elf factions. I'm probably going to go here. Try to take this, make this a Herdstone perhaps. And then I'm going to go and take all these settlements around it, because I think there's a fair few, 4 or 5. And that should give us a nice new ritual site right here. So yeah. That's probably where I'm going to go next. But you got options. You could come down south. You got to get the Witchwood at some point to take out those Wood Elves. Our rampage is going okay. We're on the way to our first bit of momentum. Our first bar being filled. You can see we're nearly there. That'll give us a little buff. It's nothing too crazy, like massively powerful. You don't need to worry too much about it, I don't think. I don't think it's really integral to the success of the Taurox campaign, but it certainly is always handy to have. So at this point, I'd say there's your strong start to this campaign. There's your episode 1 and only. We'll play a few more turns though, and I'll try out my method of where I want to go here. Like I say, you've got options. You could go north, east, or south, to be honest. There's no right or wrong. At this point, the fun of Taurox's campaign is you can just do whatever you want and move on. Because once you've performed these rituals, as I'm going to do here, you don't really need to stay around any longer. You've got the Marks of Ruination. Even if that ritual site gets destroyed now, it doesn't matter. You don't lose the Marks of Ruination from this bar. They are permanently there once you've got them. The only downside to losing a Herdstone is that all the settlements in that province cannot be taken by other factions. So it keeps them from expanding and taking the land that you've kind of controlled. So it gives you a good way to control provinces, basically. So unless your Herdstone gets taken out, those lands will be unavailable to everybody else. So that's the only downside to losing a Herdstone, is that people will be able to take those settlements again. But again, it's not a huge deal, because you'll probably be far away from there by the time that happens. So yeah, it's nice not to have to worry about anything. It's just all about rolling on and fighting. Here's the Dark Moon. This is where we can get our full replenishment, which is what we're going to do when one falls. This will give us full army replenishment in one turn. This is freaking hella useful for this Taurox campaign, because you're trying to keep moving forward and keep fighting all the time. This just allows you to do that every so often when this dark moon comes around. There is some other useful stuff as well, but I think the replenishment is just so huge. Unless your armies are fully replenished already, then you probably want to take something else. But in this case, this is super useful now because my army is going to be, as you can see there, fully replenished on the next turn. And we're going to be able to roll on and keep our rampage and our murder slaughter fest going. And the next turn, we're going to look to take the next settlement, the Circle of Destruction. We're going to make that a herdstone, and this will be the next area that we're going to vacuum up all the settlements around us so we can get all those marks of ruination. I keep building ourselves towards that final goal. Just get a couple more crappy spearmen for now. Although maybe actually we should get rid of one of the crappy spears. Let's get the Gorbel in the army instead. He'll be much more useful. We can do some training as well. Lovely. We've got our first horde upgrade as well, so we can get our second level. That is what we need. We can start to get some better units now. Get some Gore Herd, maybe some Razor Gore. Start to get a more fun army with some more fun units. So we could get a couple of buildings here. This one will give us Doggos, Harpies, the Razor Gore Herd. Or this one will give us Centaurs and Tuskor Chariots. Tough call. I'll probably go with the Razor Gore though when the time comes. For now, we need to declare war on these red Dark Elves. Red Elves, if you will. And try to take the Circle of Destruction. A nice decisive victory. Get that done. And then we've got a new herdstone to raise. Could get a little bit of money from the looting and raising, but we want to start gathering those marks of ruination, so raise it into a herdstone. And now we should have a load more settlements to add into this ritual site. Bump up that number 6 there. Get it to a 24, a 30, 36, whatever we can. A lot of these are 6, but you do get like numbers 8 and 10 and 4, depending on the quality of the settlement. We've got 5 settlements all around us here that we can take, so we're going to try and get those. That is going to be the aim from now on. And yeah, that is pretty much the gist of the Taurox campaign. You just go, put down a herdstone, raise everything around, move on. Put down a herdstone, raise everything around, move on. Do you see where this is going? No? Put down a herdstone, raise everything around, move on. That's the Beastmen rework, to be honest. That's not just Taurox. You do have the Rampage mechanic, which is unique to Taurox, but like I say, it's not really an essential part of playing the Beastmen at all. You can completely ignore it if you like, and you can still do absolutely fine. There you go, though. One and only Taurox campaign. Hopefully, if you're struggling with campaigns, you can try and copy this, and it will give you a better start, and to give you an idea of the kind of things you're supposed to be doing to be better at campaigns. Because I still see a lot of comments of people saying, oh, I suck at campaigns. So this is kind of one way I'm trying to help that by literally just kind of giving you a walkthrough that you can follow to try and copy to get, hopefully, the same results as I have. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the future.